Does anyone have a question? As I say all the time, questions are good. They always add another dimension to the class. But if there are none, that's just perfectly all right.
I'll go for a question.
I can't hear you, Alicia.
Oh. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I was listening to a talk the other day, and it was someone that had been a student of Rudy also, but had become a more of a non-dual awakened person. So described themselves as being, having landed, having reached, having woke up. And I noticed among a lot of the sort of non-dual woke people, I don't feel the kind of sentient, hearted groundedness that I feel with Rudy and with your work, and it feels something not as attractive to me. But I was just wondering if you had anything to say about those kinds of awakenings, which feel to me more like out of the body somehow.
Can I just say something very simply? There are a lot of people that supposedly teach one form or another of Rudy's work. A lot of people sit on altars and they have pictures of Rudy and Nityananda, surrounding them, but, everybody that teaches this practice teaches something different. Everybody. And, I have people come up to me in 5 years, 7 years of studying with some of these other people. They never heard about getting grounded. They never heard about the chakra below the navel, building that inner strength, that foundation inside oneself. And that's always shocking to me because, as I've said many times, the first thing that Rudy taught me when he showed me this meditation exercise. So I can't talk about, look, many years ago, I made a very serious decision that I just have to do what I've learned, and I don't get involved in other ashrams with other teachers. I don't know what they do. I don't know how enlightened they are. Enlightened people, they don't talk about being enlightened. They just live that way. Their life is in service of God. And they don't have to tell anybody, I have awakened, I've gotten enlightened. This is usually kind of spiritual ego. And that's why I just stepped away from all of that. I got tired of listening to it. And I never forget the thing I repeat over and over again when Rudy just said to me, God is God. Best a teacher can do, a guru can do, is be the servant of God and the servant of his students. So being the servant becomes the highest position you can attain on earth, which is it's really the foundation of humility, of gratitude to God, gratitude to life, gratitude to each and every person that's in your life. And I just realized many, many years ago, I used to hear this, oh, when I got my enlightenment, I heard this from people, And then I look at them and I really didn't see an enlightened person. Mostly I saw very spaced out people. And I really said to myself, an enlightened person doesn't tell people they're enlightened. They just live that way. Nityananda didn't walk around telling everybody he was enlightened. He just lived that way. Same thing with Rudy. He didn't walk around, having a big sign around his neck, I am enlightened. He lived that way. He transformed a place like New York City into a sacred temple. And to be around him was to recognize the sacredness of everything. So I don't know about these people. I get this all the time about so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. It's really none of my business. My business is to teach what I learned from Rudy. My business is to be a servant of God, a servant of everyone who studies with me. My business is to have infinite gratitude, and to never assume that I'm enlightened, because once you assume you're enlightened, there's nowhere to go. You become a crystallized being on the earth. And I don't want to live like a crystallized being on the earth. I want to grow. I want to open. I want to experience the magnificence of spiritual energy as it evolves and grows inside me. I don't want to be a crystal. So as I say, I don't mention names. I know most of these people, and I've stayed away from them. And I do what I do. And what I do is not easy, because, I always tell people, you want to grow. You can't just live in the guru's grace. You have to do your work every day. The greatest and most gracious thing you can do for your teacher is to do your inner work and build your own connection with God. And that's often missing in people that, well, I'm enlightened and, look, I don't know. It's a difficult subject. I'm up against it all the time. I'm not particularly enamored with it. And if people want to function that way, it's none of my business, And I learned years ago, I learned this from Rudy. He told me, look, everybody's attracted to exactly what they're ready and to whom they're ready to be with. You can't compete with anybody. And those that are attracted to what you do, you nurture them. You do the best to give them from the deepest place inside yourself. And it's nobody's position to criticize anybody else or anything of that nature. So yes, I understand what you're talking about. I've seen it all my life. And I always had a very hard time with it. And until I met Rudy, I began to understand the true meaning of enlightenment, and that is the service to one's students, the service to God, living with very deep humility and gratitude, and never assuming any position on the earth, whatever it might be. So yes, what I teach is different. I don't walk around in orange robes. I don't walk, I have an orange t-shirt. It's about as far as I'll go, to the Hindu. To me, it's just, Rudy ever said to me, he once said to me, it's stupid to be called a Swami in the Western world. That's an Indian thing. He once told me that. He was Swami Rudrananda. He said, it always embarrasses me when people call me Swami Rudrananda. So it's a Hindu thing. It's an Indian thing. What, Swami so-and-so living in New York City? My God. And I learned from that. I learned humility from that. I learned to look beneath the surface of appearance of what people present to me and what they're really giving and what really is going on. And that was very important, what I learned from him. I'll never forget, he told me that. He said he's embarrassed to be called Swami Rujananda. Nobody called him Swami Rujananda. He never wore orange robes when he went to his gallery to work. He wore an orange t-shirt, chino pants, and a pair of sandals. That's what he wore just about every day. You know, and, you know, I mean, I'll tell you something. You know, I was walking through, and I was in not Florida, in Texas, right? And with Rudy and Swami Muktananda and this very wealthy man invited, you know, Rudy and Muktananda and a whole coterie of people to come down there. And Rudy asked me if I want to come, and I said, yes, I'll come. Anyway, I'll never forget, I'm walking on the campus of SMU University in Dallas, Texas with Rudy. And he said to me, I would rather smoke dope than chant. And I stopped in my tracks because that was the only thing forbidden in his meditation center was any kind of marijuana, LSD, you know, stuff like that. And I said, Rudy, what? He said, Stuart, at least when you're smoking dope, you know you're getting stoned. You chant, you think it's giving you and anyway, it was that kind of humor and that kind of way, that almost irreligious way of looking at his spiritual life that I thought was really extraordinary. You know, he just had that ability to look at all the bullshit that went on, whether it was, you know, in spiritual work, whether it was in the world, in business, and this and that, and the other. And he would see right through it to the core of it. And I had never met anybody like that. And I got these incredible Zen-like lessons, like I would rather smoke dope. I mean, I had to instantly surrender all my everything, you know, and say, what? You know, it opened me inside. He did a lot of things to me like that all the time. And I am just infinitely grateful to what he did, because it broke down all the preconceptions I ever had about what it is to have a spiritual life, what it is to be a teacher, what it is to, you know, ever think that you are above anybody else. Remember, Rudy once told me, I'll never forget this, you know, he said, you know, when Swami Muktananda was in New York, he made it, you know, everybody become vegetarians, celibates, all of this stuff. And, you know, so Rudy, I'm working in this gallery and I look like a freaking coal miner. I'm scraping beams and renovating a gallery for a photographer. And he comes down and he said, you know, Baba wants me to be a celibate. He said, oh, it's all right. He said, it doesn't mean I can't give somebody else an orgasm. It just cracked me up because I never met anybody who looked at the world that way, able to see past, you know, all this ritual and dogma and structure and you know, and it just made me laugh, and it gave me a deep sense of humor about spiritual practice and the ability not to take it too seriously, but just to do it and to be able to laugh at oneself, you know, have fun doing it and laugh at oneself and not to be so important. Because that importance exists in only one place, and that's your own head. So, you know, 6 years around Rudy was an education. And then after he died, after he took his samadhi, the stuff I used to see going on was beyond all, you know, belief for me. I just used to shake my head and go, no, this is not what I learned in the last 6 years. So don't be ever fooled by the surface garments and what people wear. Are they nurturing you? Are they helping you to grow in your life? Are you doing better every single day of your life because you're sitting in the presence of that particular teacher? That's the only thing that counts. The rest of it is bullshit, you know? The dogma, the this, the that, the rituals and the ceremonies, and it doesn't amount to anything. The real question is, am I growing? Am I changing? Am I getting closer to a state of nothingness inside myself? Am I getting closer to God every single day of my life? That is the important question, not, you know, the rituals and the ceremonies. I just finished with it. You know, I remember I went to Tiruvannamalai in South India, and it was a very difficult period in my life, you know, really difficult period. And I wanted to say, the hell with all this, you know, having to travel around the world teaching and this and that. And I said, I was just exhausted. You know, so I went to Tiruvannamalai because it was the ashram of Ramana Maharshi. And I always felt a deep connection with Ramana Maharshi. And I walked into the ashram, and it was really extraordinary because it was like a fashion show of Europeans and Americans walking around in Hindu garb, you know, and saris and, you know, all the, and I said, my God, I didn't come here for this. I came here to get an answer to my questions. So I never forget, I went, please try and sit still while I'm talking. If it doesn't interest you, then just, you know, get off the computer. But please try and sit still because otherwise it disrupts the whole energy. And anyway, I took a walk to the end of the ashram there, and there was a fence. And it led to a pathway that went up Mount Aranachula, or I think that's what it's called. And that's where, you know, Ramana Maharshi spent 16 years meditating in a cave. And I went up this, you know, path, and I came to the cave where he spent, I think there were a couple of caves. This one he spent 9 years in. And I went in, I sat down, and I really asked that question. I said, you know, Baba, I need to go live in an ashram. I need to go, I'm tired of this. And the whole cave lit up with light. It was so powerful. And I heard his voice tell me, your work is in the world. Your work is in the world. Got my answer. And all of that tiredness just got swept away out of me. Your work is in the world. And I've been told that by a number of teachers. You know, Kala Rinpoche told me the same thing. Go move back to New York because your work will be known all over the world, your teachings. So what I've learned is robes and, you know, what people say, am I growing every day in my life because of the person who is my spiritual teacher? That is the only important thing you have to know. You know, not all the rest of the stuff. Am I growing? Are the people around him growing? Or they're all just kind of fluttering around like you described, Lisha, and the guru's great, you know? And it seems like it's all out of body and, you know, kind of spacey experience. But am I growing? Am I evolving? Am I becoming more conscious of living in the world? Am I becoming a happier person? Do I have more patience with the people around me? Do I have more love in my heart for the people around me? That is the answer. That's the key to all of this. That's what I learned from Rudy. Because being around him and doing his work transformed a crazy and neurotic and young man who was like a gypsy into,
It's 2 o'clock.
you know, what I do today. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, there will be a meditation on Sunday. God bless you all for being here. Thank you. And again, I always say it, you all are my teacher. You all drag out of me stuff that I need to learn myself. So thank you and bless you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. God bless you.